Hi, it's Phil here, 5 minutes with Phil, and my take on Paul's relationship with his mentee, guy by the name of Timothy. First Timothy chapter 4, and we're looking at verse 4 today. For everything God created is good. Seems that there are exceptions to this, like mosquitoes and flies, hornets, wasps, poison ivy, skunks. Need I say more? And yet we know that these things all serve a purpose in God's ecosystem. They're probably things we never would have thought of. If we had, we would have rejected the idea. Here's what I found out. Skunks are beneficial critters. They're omnivorous and eat a variety of garden pests, including mice, voles, beetles, various larvae, wasps, and crickets. Skunks are also scavengers. They'll seek out animal carcasses, which help keep an ecosystem free of carrion. Scavengers are important to the health of the environment. Who knew? Well, maybe you did. It's not really surprising. Some of these things in the world that we might think of as optional, well, they have in fact been placed there by the Creator. For everything God created is good. Everything fits into God's plan, God's system. How about viruses? Good question. And one that I honestly don't feel sure about. I suppose everyone will eventually die. We know that. Everyone has to die of something, whether it's heart failure or organ failure or old age or a virus. Maybe they have something to do with that. They're part of the sin entered the world scenario of Genesis 3. Maybe. I don't know how to weigh these things, but you could come up with a long list of positive things that have come about with COVID-19, such as respect for healthcare, frontline workers, and creativity in church worship services and the use of media. But it does feel that there's a much longer list of negatives: lost businesses, jobs, fellowship, graduations, weddings, lives, and perhaps most of all, hope. Ah, lost hope. Paul wrote to the church in Rome, and we know that in all things, God works for the good of those who love him, who've been called according to his purpose. If you believe that God indeed does work in all things, including deadly worldwide pandemics, why would there be a reason to lose hope? This is not some everything's going to be okay sentimentalism. This is rooted in the fact that God governs all things in the world. Not that God causes virus outbreaks or hurricanes or cancer, but he's still ultimately in charge. And with faith in him, all things are possible for those who love him, who've been called according to his purpose. To the Jew, there were many foods that were not good. They were forbidden. Baby back ribs, bacon, and crab cakes included. I tend to see this list of God's dietary laws as being somewhat arbitrary, although some dietitians may disagree, and that's okay. But they were marks of separation from the world among the Israelites. Were they harmful? Probably not in most cases, but they would be harmful if God said don't, and they said, I don't care what God says. I'm going to do what I want. I'm the captain of my soul. You're not the boss of me. So in Acts chapter 10, God showed Peter in a very powerful way that there were foods that had been forbidden in the past, and now they were good to eat. And that people, Gentiles, that they were to avoid, were now okay to meet with. Jesus had already shaken their world when he spent time with the woman at the well in Samaria. Men didn't talk with women other than immediate family, and Jews didn't interact with Samaritans, but Jesus did. So we have an obligation to spend time and even respect those who are different from us, whether by the color of their skin, cultural differences, language, or race. In fact, there is no excuse for exclusion. If the church is the hope of the world, and I believe it is, because the church is the body of Christ, We'd better get our act together. Let the Spirit of God change us and live as brothers and sisters. We are one body. We have been called, commissioned by Jesus himself to make disciples who are not currently part of the family of God. Yet it's the Spirit who makes it possible for someone to be adopted into the family of God. But he's called you and me into a divine partnership with him. So even though we live in a sinful world, fallen world, remember this: everything God created is good. And everything means, well, everything. That includes food, that includes marriage, that includes people, everything. See you next time.